Why is the press and the palace refusing to look or comment or report on Meghan Markle's links to the same individual? And most importantly, her relationship, her close personal relationship with Prince Andrew.
Shocking moments on live television have once again put Meghan Markle and Prince Harry at the center of public attention, leaving many people stunned. This time, it's not about royal titles or family disputes, but a string of Saturday Night Live jokes that reignited old rumors and reopened conversations many thought had faded. Meghan, who has tried to stay calm in midst of everything, now finds herself facing renewed scrutiny both online and in her business world. So what exactly happened, and why has it struck such a nerve? Stay with us till the end as we unpack the full story. The Saturday Night Live joke. Over the years, one thing royal life has always tried to protect more than anything else is public perception. Because one thing most people don't realize is that how the public sees the royal house in the approval ratings matters more than almost anything. Recently, one force with the power to either break or make those ratings has stepped back into the picture. Saturday Night Live has made comments over the years that have genuinely moved the polls for some of the family's most talked about members. Just like when they called Harry a half-traitor, a jab so sharp it stuck around in headlines for days. That single line didn't just land as a joke. It fed straight into a narrative that had already been building about where Harry stood, both at home and with the public that used to claim him. And then, just when nobody expected it, they struck again, in a way that even left Meghan speechless. President Trump had just announced a new trade deal with the United Kingdom, one meant to reopen British markets to American companies, with the UK's Prime Minister joining the announcement by phone. It was the kind of story that Weekend Update usually covers with a line or two before moving on. But Colin Jost didn't let it pass quietly. He walked the audience through the deal, then delivered the line that would eclipse the actual news, joking that Britain's only real condition was that America agreed to keep these two, as a photo of Harry and Meghan appeared on the screen behind him. The studio did not just chuckle politely. The laughter built fast into a full eruption. You know that type of reaction that shows an audience isn't simply appreciating the clever joke. Instead, they're recognizing something they already believed being said out loud for the first time on a stage that big. That's the real engine behind a joke like this. Nobody had to explain what those three words meant. The implication that even their own country would rather see them stay in America than come home was obvious enough that the audience filled in the blank instantly, and the size of that laugh worked like a live, unfiltered poll on how a large chunk of the public actually feels about the couple's standing today. What made the joke sting even more was the framing. A trade deal is supposed to be about markets, tariffs, and economic cooperation between two allied nations. Turning it into a bit about which country gets stuck with two specific people reduced Harry and Meghan to something closer to unwanted baggage than public figures. And that framing landed as pointed, rather than playful, for a lot of viewers. Entertainment outlets picked up on that tone almost immediately, describing the joke using words like brutal and savage, rather than simply calling it funny, language that suggested even casual observers sensed there was more edge to this one than the show's usual back and forth with public figures. Timing made it worse. Just days before the episode aired, Harry and Meghan had been seen out in public enjoying a concert together, the kind of relaxed, happy appearance that's become part of how they present their life since stepping away from royal duties, settled, content, and thriving on their own terms. Against that backdrop, a major American show suggesting that even Britain didn't want them back created a much sharper contrast than the joke would have carried on its own. It wasn't simply poking fun at a trade deal. It was undercutting the very image of contentment the couple had just put on display for the world to see. Clips of the segment spread within hours, moving from entertainment news accounts to royal commentary pages to ordinary social media users, each share adding another layer of reaction and opinion. Some viewers defended it as standard late-night humor, no sharper than what the show does to any public figure who's been in the news that week. Others took it as confirmation of something they already suspected, that public patience with the couple, on both sides of the Atlantic, had worn thinner than either of them might want to admit. That kind of split reaction says something on its own. A joke that divides an audience that clearly usually isn't really about the joke anymore. It's about what each side already believed walking in. But it did not end there. What will really surprise you is that these two strikes were not the only ones the couple had to deal with. Just when the story seemed to settle, another moment surfaced, one that actually happened years earlier. Back in 2018, during Harry and Meghan's actual wedding week, love was in the air everywhere you looked. Street celebrations, commemorative mugs, wall-to-wall coverage of the dress and the carriage ride. But down at the Saturday Night Live studio, the writer's room was cooking up something very different from the rest of the world's mood that week. While the couple was busy exchanging vows, Weekend Update took its own shot, joking that the newly married Prince Harry was essentially an unemployed man who still lived with his grandmother. The line landed hard. It was the kind of joke that gets repeated at parties long after the party ends, and it reduced a literal member of the British royal family to unemployment and a childhood bedroom in a single sentence. It was a strange contrast to everything else happening that week. The rest of the world was swept up in fairy tale imagery, and here was a major American network quietly undercutting that entire narrative before the confetti had even settled. That joke mattered because of what it revealed early on, even at the height of public goodwill toward the couple. When most of the world was charmed and celebratory, there was already a competing version of the story being told elsewhere, one that painted Harry as somehow lesser for the life he was stepping into. It planted a seed that would keep resurfacing for years, long after the wedding coverage faded from the news cycle. But keep watching, because what really sealed things for Meghan came from somewhere else entirely. In another moment, where no one expected the conversation to swing in an entirely different direction, Weekend Update found a way to pull Meghan back into the spotlight without even making her the main subject. This time, the target on the surface was Prince Andrew. As another round of royal headlines unfolded, Colin Jost set up the story by talking about Andrew's already battered reputation before delivering the punchline that drew one of the night's biggest reactions. He joked that the royal family would only ever make Andrew king if it comes down to either him or Meghan. It was a remarkably short line, but like so many of the show's biggest jokes, it worked because the audience instantly understood the comparison. Nobody needed an explanation. Their laughter came from the suggestion that Meghan had become such a controversial figure within conversations about the monarchy that, in the joke's logic, even someone carrying Andrew's extraordinary public baggage would somehow still be considered before her. That was the entire sting. What makes this moment even harder to shake off is the timing. It's landing at a point when Meghan is already dealing with real pressure on other fronts: her business ventures, her public partnerships, and her overall standing with audiences who've been watching her every move for years. A joke like this doesn't just disappear once the laughter dies down, especially when it lands during a stretch where so much else is already under strain. Stay with us as we look at how this joke is affecting Meghan's work and what it could mean for what comes next. How this joke affects Meghan. Thing those jokes did, perhaps without even meaning to, was reopen a chapter of Meghan's past that she herself had probably wanted to leave behind. That's often how public perception works. A joke is told on national television, millions of people hear it, and suddenly people begin looking for old stories that they believe might explain why the joke landed in the first place. Before long, social media was doing what it does best, digging through years of photographs, interviews, and internet rumors in search of anything that could be connected to Meghan. The Prince Andrew joke became the spark. For some viewers, it was simply another late-night punchline. For others, it was the beginning of a fresh investigation. Across internet space and royal discussion forums, users started revisiting claims that had circulated years earlier. Among the most widely shared were photographs that supposedly showed a younger Meghan aboard luxury yachts surrounded by wealthy and influential people. Before long, some online accounts began claiming those pictures linked her to Prince Andrew's social circle and, by extension, Jeffrey Epstein. The claims spread quickly because the photographs looked convincing when you see them for the first time. Thousands of people shared them without stopping to ask where they came from or whether the captions were accurate. As often happens online, the more the images were reposted, the more believable they appeared. For many people scrolling through their feeds, the pictures seemed like proof that there was more to Meghan's story than had ever been publicly discussed. But that version of the story didn't survive careful examination. Independent fact-checkers took a closer look at the photographs and found that several of the most viral claims simply were not true. Some of the women identified as Meghan turned out to be entirely different people. Other images had been paired with misleading descriptions that created connections that did not actually exist. In one of the most widely circulated examples, the woman people claimed was linked to Jeffrey Epstein's social circle was later identified as someone else altogether. The supposed evidence that had fueled days of speculation began falling apart once it was examined piece by piece. For Meghan, that should have been the end of it. The photographs that had generated so much discussion had failed to prove what people claimed they proved, and the internet had its answer. But this is where the story takes a different gear. Instead of moving on after learning that the photographs did not show what many believed, attention shifted towards something else entirely. Rather than asking whether Meghan appeared in old yacht photographs, people started asking whether she had ever been close to Prince Andrew himself. That question was not driven by newly discovered evidence. It came from events that had already unfolded years earlier. In 2021, during the civil lawsuit brought against Prince Andrew by Virginia Giuffre, attorney David Boies publicly mentioned that Meghan could potentially be deposed if the case moved in that direction. His reasoning was not that Meghan had done anything wrong or that she had been accused of any involvement. Instead, Boies suggested that because Meghan had lived within the royal family and spent time around senior royals after marrying Prince Harry, she might possess information that could be relevant if witnesses were needed. That single comment immediately generated headlines around the world. For many readers, the word deposition sounded dramatic enough on its own. But what often got lost was the important distinction between being mentioned as a possible witness and being accused of wrongdoing. Those are two very different things. Meghan was never accused by Virginia Giuffre of participating in any misconduct. She was never named as a defendant. She was never called to testify. In the end, no deposition ever happened, and the lawsuit concluded when Prince Andrew reached an out-of-court settlement while continuing to deny the allegations against him. Legally, Meghan's role in the case went nowhere. Publicly, however, the conversation was a different story. Once someone's name appears alongside a major scandal, even briefly, separating the facts from the assumptions becomes much harder than many people realize. On social media especially, headlines often travel much faster than corrections. A possible witness can suddenly become, in the minds of some people, someone far more deeply connected than the facts actually support. That is how public narratives grow. They are often built less on what has been proven and more on what people think might be true. For Meghan, that has become one of the biggest challenges of recent years. Every time she appears ready to move the conversation toward a new project or a new chapter, older stories seem to resurface. And this pattern has begun to affect Meghan in more ways than one, especially when it comes to business. So let's take a closer look. If there is one place where public perception eventually becomes impossible to ignore, it is in business. Headlines may disappear after a few days, but companies and investors rarely move on so quickly. They pay attention to reputation, consistency, and public confidence. And for Meghan, that has become one of the biggest challenges since stepping away from royal life. When Harry and Meghan left their roles as senior working royals, they entered the private world with opportunities that few people ever receive. Archewell was launched with ambitious plans to combine charitable work with media production. Then came the blockbuster deals, Spotify signed Meghan and Harry to a multi-million-dollar podcast agreement. Netflix followed with an equally high-profile production partnership. On paper, it looked like the perfect transition from royalty to global entrepreneurs. But the reality proved far more complicated. Spotify became the first major setback. After producing just one season of Archetypes, the partnership came to an end. The split made even bigger headlines when Spotify executive Bill Simmons publicly criticized Harry and Meghan, comments that quickly spread across the entertainment industry. Whether people agreed with him or not, the moment raised fresh questions about whether the couple could consistently deliver the kind of content expected from such a high-profile deal. Netflix has been a more mixed story. Their documentary Harry and Meghan attracted enormous audiences and dominated headlines around the world. But the projects that followed generated far less momentum. While the partnership remains in place, critics have increasingly questioned whether the couple can continue producing content that captures the same level of public interest as their first release. Then came Meghan's lifestyle brand. Originally introduced as American Riviera Orchard before evolving into a broader business venture, the launch generated excitement, but also confusion. Trademark issues, delays, and changing plans meant that what was expected to be a major commercial debut became a slower and more uncertain rollout than many had anticipated. Even Archewell has faced periods of public scrutiny. Although the foundation continues its charitable work, critics have questioned whether it has lived up to the enormous expectations that surrounded its launch. Fair or unfair, every challenge seemed to add to the growing narrative that building a successful post-royal career was proving much harder than anyone first imagined. But even with all of this, Meghan has remained silent. That is perhaps the most surprising part of the entire story. Because if history tells us anything about Meghan, it is that she is not someone who usually allows claims that affect her reputation to go unanswered. One of the clearest examples came during her legal battle against the Mail on Sunday. After the newspaper published parts of a private letter Meghan had written to her father, Meghan didn't simply ignore it. She took the publisher to court, arguing that her privacy had been violated. After a lengthy legal battle, she won the case. It became one of the biggest media lawsuits involving a member of the royal family and reinforced her reputation as someone willing to defend herself whenever she believed the line had been crossed. She has also used interviews to tell her side of the story. Her conversation with Oprah Winfrey became one of the most talked about television interviews in recent history, giving Meghan the opportunity to directly answer claims about her experience within the royal family instead of allowing others to shape the narrative for her, which is exactly why her silence now feels so unusual. The rumors continue to circulate. The jokes continue to be shared, bringing old stories to light. Yet this time there has been no major interview addressing them, no legal action, and no detailed public response. Whether that silence is a carefully planned strategy or simply a decision not to give more attention to online speculation is something only Meghan herself can answer. But one thing is becoming increasingly clear. That silence is beginning to cost her, not only in business, but in some of the relationships she has built over the years. Perhaps the clearest example is Jessica Mulroney. For years, Jessica was widely regarded as one of Meghan's closest friends. She was there long before the royal wedding, stood by her during some of the biggest moments of her life, and her children even played important roles during Harry and Meghan's wedding ceremony. Their friendship appeared to be one that would last for years. Then, almost without warning, everything seemed to change. After Jessica Mulroney became embroiled in a public controversy in 2020, many expected Meghan to publicly support one of her closest friends. Instead, she remained silent. Neither woman has publicly explained what happened, but over time, the friendship appeared to fade from public view. They were no longer seen together. Public mentions disappeared. What had once looked like one of Meghan's strongest personal relationships quietly slipped away. Whether the distance was caused by reputation management, personal differences, or reasons known only to the two women remains unclear. But for many observers, it became another reminder that public image has a way of influencing even the closest relationships. And yet, as significant as those friendships may have been, there is one relationship that many royal watchers believe has faced even greater scrutiny than all the rest. That relationship is her marriage. This is important because while business partnerships can end and friendships can drift apart, the questions surrounding Harry and Meghan's relationship have only grown louder with every passing month. Stay with us, because this is the part of the story you won't want to miss. Strains in Meghan's marriage. Earlier this year, something happened that many people overlooked. At the time, it barely made headlines outside royal commentary circles. A handful of royal commentators predicted that 2026 could become a defining year for Harry and Meghan's marriage, with some even speculating about the possibility of a divorce. Most people brushed those predictions aside. They sounded like just another round of royal gossip, no different from the countless rumors that have surrounded the couple ever since they stepped away from royal life. But as the months passed, some observers began noticing a pattern. The couple who had once presented themselves as almost inseparable started appearing apart more often. Meghan increasingly attended engagements on her own, while Harry focused on separate charitable appearances and private commitments. More recently, Harry confirmed he would travel to the United Kingdom without Meghan and their children after planned family travel changed because of ongoing security concerns. While there is nothing unusual about married couples pursuing individual work, their separate appearances inevitably fueled more speculation among royal watchers already looking for signs that something had changed. Then came the Saturday Night Live joke. What might have been dismissed as just another late-night punchline suddenly arrived at a time when the couple were already facing renewed scrutiny. The jokes reignited old debates, revived old rumors, and once again placed Harry and Meghan under an intense spotlight. But for Harry, another challenge was unfolding at almost the same time. After losing his legal appeal over security arrangements in the United Kingdom, Harry gave one of his most personal interviews in years. He spoke openly about wanting reconciliation with his family, revealing that King Charles was no longer speaking to him because of the ongoing disputes surrounding his security. More strikingly, Harry admitted he wanted peace and said he did not know how much longer his father had, a comment that many interpreted as a sign that he hoped to repair the relationship while there was still time. That interview appeared to reveal a different Harry. For years, he had defended the decision to leave royal life and build a future in California with Meghan. Now, for the first time in a long while, he was publicly speaking about reconciliation, forgiveness, and finding a path back toward his family. That desire, however, appears to sit alongside another reality. Meghan has consistently made it clear through interviews and public statements over the years that she has no desire to return to life as a working royal. She has spoken about the challenges she experienced within the institution and has focused instead on building a life, career, and family in the United States. Those priorities are very different from Harry's repeated expressions of wanting his children to know their British heritage and his recent calls for reconciliation with his father. Whether those differences represent genuine tension or simply two people balancing different priorities is something only Harry and Meghan truly know. But from the outside looking in, many people believe the couple now appear to be standing at a crossroads. One seems increasingly focused on repairing ties with the family he left behind. The other continues building the independent life they created together thousands of miles away. Perhaps those goals can exist side by side. Perhaps they cannot. Either way, what started as jokes on a comedy show has become part of a much larger conversation about the future of one of the world's most closely watched couples. Because while jokes eventually fade, the choices Harry and Meghan make from this point forward may leave a far more lasting mark than any punchline ever could. So what does that leave Harry and Meghan? And do you think this joke has had a greater impact on Meghan than we can see? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more.